Hey guys, so today I'm going to be feeding my Sonoran gopher. A lot of people happen to mistake these for rattlesnakes. They are not rattlesnakes, even though they will rattle their tail like a rattlesnake. They have a dark colored tongue, so it does look like they're venomous, but they're not. Another way to tell if they're not venomous is also to look at their eye shape. Their eyes are round pupils, not slits. Also, their tail obviously doesn't have a rattle on it. A teardrop under the eyes. And their stance, a lot of times when they're reared up and ready to strike, they have their mouth already opened. Rattlesnakes will not do that. They will use their tongue to flick several times, and then they will bite their opponent, or they will bite their prey that way. They will never expose their mouth open. Rattlesnakes won't. This is, like I said, a Sonoran gopher snake. They're completely harmless. They can grow anywhere from lengths of 3 foot to 5 foot or so. I think one might have been 6 foot at the longest. But this one is a Sonoran gopher. There are 3 or 4 subspecies of this kind of snake. So if that interests you, be sure to look that up in any snake book on the U.S. From my knowledge, I think they're a relatively common species that are kept as pets. Today, like I said, I'm going to be feeding her, and the way I feed them is not typically done, or it's not typically done by most people. The way I do it, I just throw the thawed out rats in. Most people like to use tongs or hemostats to move the food around. I don't do it only because this one is so good about eating without having to wiggle it in front of her face or anything. And also, I've never been bit. I've had her, well, I've only been bit once. I've had her for about a little over 12 years now, and only been bit once. It was because I moved too fast and spooked her. So there's that. Other than that, she's real docile, real calm, real easy to raise. Their preferred temperatures are between 75 degrees and 85 degrees. Now, depending on what subspecies it is, they'll vary a little bit, not by a whole lot. The change is basically marginable. So I like to feed mine thawed out rats. So these already have been bought from the pet store. They've already been frozen, so they're been dead for a while. So this will not be a live feeding. Alright, so the way I do it, I use my hands. I would not recommend doing this with your bare hands unless you know your snake. Typically, like I said, most people like to use tongs and stuff. I like to use my hands because I'll just drop it in. Okay, so here we go. Here we go. First one's in. She sees it. She's flicking her tongue. She's tasting the air. She knows they're there. That's how they can tell when food is in the air, is when they start flicking their tongue like she's doing. So she's tasting the air. She's looking around. So when you thaw out these mice, you want to use room temperature or slightly above room temperature water and let them soak for a little while. Make sure that they're nice and soft and mushy when they're done, so that way it's easier digestion and it doesn't hurt the snake. As you can see, there she goes. She's moving closer. She's moving in. She's looking. Come on. She can taste it. So this is typically why people generally use tongs to wiggle the food right in front of them so they can have a better idea where to strike. And sometimes they respond better to this. But my gopher snake, she seems to be pretty good about usually picking them up rather fast and getting them down. She knows one's in there. She knows what area it's in. These are just room temperature mice that have been thawed out. But she's typically not very picky. And she may be just acting like this because of me sitting right here. She usually eats whenever I step away. So just gonna wait for her to do that. The cool thing about snakes is that they have a split in their jaw in the front section toward their midline. The midline of the jaw that allows the lower mandibles to separate, so that way they can fit down food 2 times, I think, or maybe it might have been 3 times the size of their head. As you can see, she's just now starting to eat, but what it does is it forces the lower jaw to open up a bit wider so that way they can get their meal down. And once they've gotten the meal down and they realize that, you know, if they're full, they'll reset their jaw and kind of use the muscles to reset the bones to hook them back into place to close that midline section area where their lower mandibles split. They'll use their muscles to reconnect their bones right there until the next feeding. That's what you usually see snakes do when they say that they're yawning. That's what they're doing, is resetting the muscles and bones in their mouths before they strike again. Now, while she's busy eating that one down, I'm going to very carefully open this up and drop another one in. See how she responds. So any kind of movement, typically when they're eating, does make them nervous, so you try to limit that as much as possible. But seeing as to how I didn't spook her too bad, it didn't cause her to let go of the mouse, or if she had already had it down. Sometimes if too much movement is in the area, or you mess with them in any way, can cause them to upchuck their meal because of the stress. So it's not typically good to make a whole lot of racket whenever you're feeding your snake, or whenever they freshly had a meal in their stomach. But if you look closely, you can see how her jaw kind of looks dislodged. Well, that's normal. That's, like I said, towards the bottom of her mouth. The lower mandibular jawbone has a split in the front that allows it to split in two, so she can get her meals down quicker. Typically they bite from the front, get the head down towards the tail, but however sometimes they're able to get it down from tail to head. So, but typically you will see most snakes feed from head to tail. But because she's so good at getting it down, I don't have to direct her. See, as you can see how the mouth expands and stuff, that's due to because the muscles and using that to split her lower jaw into two sections, just slightly, enough to expand around the meal so that way she can get it down. And she'll use her muscles in her throat and down through her chest and stomach area to force the food back, to force the food down her body to where it can meet that stomach acid. Also, a lot of their water will come from their meals. That's another thing about when you feed them. Is typically most snakes rely on getting water through their meals, through the things they eat, and also drinking off their scales, like whenever it rains out in the wild. So sometimes it's good to mist them whenever they're in their cage and all that, so that way it kind of gives them a feeling of rainfall. And it is okay if some of the substrate goes down their mouth like it is right now. That is completely digestible. And I am about to put another one down. Yep, see that. So now we're just gonna wait, let her figure it out, what she wants to do. But for the most part, these are pretty interesting snakes. This particular species, the Sonoran gopher snake, likes to bury herself. They like to bury themselves in the substrate, or what would be known as soil outside, to avoid the heat, also to hide themselves. They typically use it as a means to ambush their prey. Sometimes also used, like I said, to avoid the heat of the sun, to avoid overheating. They also they prefer dens, like tortoise dens and box turtle dens. They also like gopher holes, hence the name Sonoran gopher snake. That's how they got their name, was from living in gopher holes. Sorry about that. The light is getting a little bit of problems there, but there we go. Oh, you guys can see that. The thing is that they love underground areas, and they seem to be diurnal, meaning that they they hunt primarily in the day. So this is a daytime snake typically, and usually recluses into the ground at night. However, other species of snakes are nocturnal, so it just kind of depends on what species of snake you happen to have as a pet. Here she goes. She's about to find the next one. This is her third one. And then after that, I'll give her one more, and then the feeding will be done. But I like the marking that they have on their face because it looks like a teardrop. Looks like they're crying. Most people take that also sometimes as a sign of being venomous. That is not always the case. There are plenty of snake species out there that have a teardrop-like scale that's underneath their eye that are venomous, but like I said, these guys are not. Also, typically look at the pattern on the snake, and that will tell you somewhat here in the U.S. That will tell you whether they're venomous or not. As well as kind of like how they behave whenever they get defensive and stuff. A lot of times that will tell you. Rattlesnakes usually, when they feel threatened, will kind of rear up. Sometimes they rattle, sometimes they don't, so you can't really count on that to tell whether or not they're getting defensive. But look at how their stance is, and they'll typically try to retreat. That's one of the first things they do. They don't want to bite too much because they only have a limited supply of venom in their venom glands, which would be up in their cheek area on the head. So beware of that. Another thing is that when these guys get mad, they typically stay where they are. They're kind of like one of those stand your ground type of snakes. And yeah, they'll stay where they are. They'll rear up and have their mouth open on display, like, hey, back off. You know, I mean business. Well, rattlesnake will stand up, but will not have its mouth open, and will just flick its tongue and then slowly try and move away. However, if you progress toward it, it will strike. So, typically, rattlesnakes don't try to get too defensive unless they have no other choice. The non-venomous snakes you will find will be more quick to be defensive with their mouths than any other kind of snake, only because they don't have the same attributes as a venomous snake does. So she's still searching because she can smell the scent of those other rats that she just ate on the substrate. She can smell their scent, so it's kind of causing her to have to look a little bit harder and look around further where her meal is, her next meal. Come on, it's back the other way. Oh, there she goes. She's about to find it. Come on. She's trying to angle it right so that way she can get it down her mouth. Since they don't have arms and legs like we do, they rely on their neck muscles and stuff and head to shovel their food into the right direction so that way they can eat from the right angle. Notice how her nose is real pointed. That's usually used because of digging substrate or digging soil and moving it around, so that way they can kind of hollow out small dens and stuff to their liking. That's also how they dig partially under the ground to bury themselves shallow like grave, so that way they can avoid heat, or like I said, to ambush their prey. To me, snakes are one of the most interesting reptiles out there, and I really think more people should take the time to learn about them and not treat them as something to be feared greatly. They should be respected, yes, but the amount of fear that's out there of these things is just astronomical and uncalled for, really. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video of getting to watch her feed. If y'all like this kind of stuff, please like, comment, and subscribe. And I will see you guys in the next video.